Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. Talking with the great coach Bobby Hurley Sr. from St. Anthony's since 1973 to the present. St. Anthony's High School in Jersey City. He's got a new book out called Chasing Perfect. So we're talking about your son Bobby Hurley. Comes in, makes a nice transition. Great player. Now, every college comes a knocking, and one of them is Duke. And the legendary Coach Krzyzewski, Coach K. How do you meet him, first of all? When do you meet him? And how does he approach you about recruiting your son? And what kind of advice do you give your son about the other options?
Well, you try to treat it like it's the other recruiting situations for previous kids.
Right.
Except that, your wife is involved every night in this now. Right. So it changes things dramatically.
It's where they're going to, it's not where they're going to play basketball, it's where they're going to college. Right, yeah.
So all of junior year, we had Dean Smith coming, and we had Jim Boeheim, and Rolly Massimino, and
unbelievable.
Bobby Cremens.
Right.
Everybody, PJ Colissimo when he was at Seton Hall. And then when it was time at through July, they all continued to come. And then we started scheduled visits. And when he scheduled a visit for Duke, he did the first visit. And what they did was so sharp. They sent Bob Bender, the assistant coach. He flew up.
Right.
He met Bobby at the door of our house, went with him to Newark Airport, flew down with him.
Wow.
It just so happened that Jimmy Spinarkel, who is from Jersey City, who also went to Duke, happened to be going down that weekend to visit the school.
Perfect.
So Jimmy and Bobby knew each other, so they spoke some. And then the home visit for the coaches can make a home visit. You make the campus visit. So he made the campus visit. Called me on Friday night and said, I watched the guards. He said, I can play here right away. I like everything about it. Danny Ferry hosted him.
Right.
It was very relaxed. They were sweats. They didn't feel like it was, like he was afraid it was too preppy. He was comfortable there.
So he was hooked from the beginning.
Yeah, so he came out on Sunday morning. This is only his first visit. And he comes home Sunday morning. We're in the bingo hall in Jersey City, and we're cleaning up the bingo hall, and the kids are lifting weights.
Right.
And he comes in and asks me to go downstairs, and he said, I'm done.
You're done.
So I asked him a couple of questions. I mean, he's been around the process.
And it's a full scholarship he's being offered.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about, the first worry of the oldest child has now been solved.
How proud of you are you as a parent, basketball coach? Your son not only does well with you there, is getting offered a full ride to Duke.
Yeah, so now the staff comes in.
Right.
And, in an unusual circumstance, my wife fixes Sunday dinner for everybody. So we're all sitting in the living room, and they start talking about the recruiting process. And finally, I just put my hand up. I says, Mike, we don't have to do this anymore. He wants to go to school and put the brakes on it. Hardest thing, though, was now making the phone calls to all of the guys that were recruiting him.
Did you call them personally, the other guys?
We had Bobby would call each one.
Boeheim personally? Dean Smith personally? Wow.
Yeah. And the reactions of some of them were very professional.
Right.
And one or two, not so good.
No kidding.
Yeah,
like pure anger.
Some whining was going on.
No kidding.
Not so good. Not so good.
And you can't give us the names of who they might be.
You probably could find out. One of them you could find out about. Yeah.
Right.
One is a story that's been told about. One of them I actually had to escort out of my living room.
That's hilarious.
About a month later when he was recruiting one of my other players.
No kidding.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. Basketball. It gets passionate.
It's amazing. I never thought about the correlation between basketball and football with recruiting, but it is very similar when you boil it down. Yeah. And the way everything's accelerated now, we were talking during the break, they have 2 signing days. You got juniors committing for basketball.
Sophomores committing.
Really?
Wow.
Sophomores committing.
How do you know what you want to do in life when you're not even driving yet?
How does that college coach know that you're actually still going to be good enough 2 years from now?
It's growing. Basketball growing.
Some of your motivation.
And growing,
so when do we reach a tipping point? Like, when do we get to that point where it's obvious that this is counterproductive?
Yeah. The NCAA is riding a crest of success, and they don't want to rock the boat.
No,
so they're not going to change
it. It's a big deal.
The tournament ratings are tremendous. The money going back to the different schools.
It's unreal what they've
phenomenal.
created with that. Yeah.
They really don't want to rock the boat.
When you were talking about Bobby's recruiting, story, it had to do your heart well. I mean, for you too, when he came to you and said it was Duke, I mean, that had to. We were talking about this too, because that's a school that for the rest of his life, people automatically give you a pass because you went to. That had to
also
be
the education level too.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
Ivy League educational.
Exactly. People, when you say Duke, when you say Princeton, Penn, people, their ears perk up, and it's not just in this area or certain regions of the U.S. It's worldwide, and
Absolutely.
man, that had to do your heart good. But what was the relationship like? I'm assuming he was with you at practice every day growing up, and so he was obviously showing skills, but on a personal level, how did you navigate that relationship with your son?
Well, he was a good utility guy as a freshman, did a lot of good things.
Right.
But by that next year, he was developing into a really good player, and now it starts to become how do we handle him in a group dynamic?
Yeah,
So
but
what I
how
would
do you
is
handle people looking at him and saying maybe, well, he's playing because of his dad? Was he that great that it was obvious
he
that
was.
wasn't
Well, he was
his game?
small. He was small.
Yeah.
And, I have a bunch of friends from Atlantic City. Jim Whalen is the former mayor down there. He's a state senator now. And he and his friends used to come and watch us play in South Jersey. And they would get together after and say, he's a good little player. I just don't know if he's ever going to play in college.
Right.
And so you fast forward 5 years, and he's the MVP of the NCAA tournament, and he grows a foot. He's a foot taller.
Right.
Really?
Yeah, he was
Wow.
5'1" as an 8th grader, and then he was 6'1" as a high school senior.
There's so many question marks with basketball as far as physicality and changes more than any other sport because height means so much. And by the way, this is an educated guess. I really do feel bad for you having to escort Raleigh Massimino out of your.
Somebody was doing some research behind the scenes.
We got a crack staff. No, but it makes sense. No, listen. So now my big question though is Bobby has all this success. Now Danny comes. Now Danny has the added pressure, not only being the coach's son. You're a legend. Bobby's become his own legend. Now he's the younger brother and the son, and he excels. Which shows a lot about him. Now, how difficult was that process with Danny?
Well, he was following the same footprint that Bobby had followed. Bobby was following David Rivers, who played at Notre Dame,
Right.
Kenny Wilson, who played at Villanova. He tried to do exactly what they had done. They were older than him. So as Danny comes along, he's just following Bobby, who's following these other kids, and you're trying to be where they are at certain points in your career. And he's going through the same thing. He's growing like a couple inches each year, starting to look differently. When he was a senior, he was the Tri-State Player of the Year. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut.
That's right. He really excelled. I can remember reading the paper about. I was living in LA at the time. I remember reading the paper about Danny.
Yeah.
I always liked reading about you guys because it was a slice of home. Reading about St. Anthony's, and he really excelled with you guys, and ends up going to Seton Hall, an
And with
amazing
him,
school.
it was the difference with him is that the older guy was comfortable going away to school. Danny was more of a homebody.
Like to be
Danny
home.
wanted to bring the laundry home on Thursday night for Grandma to wash.
Yeah.
Grandma would give him foot rubs on Thursday nights. And
It's like our guy Boschetti. He's that type of guy.
and it's Sunday afternoon dinner. He's back for dinner on Sunday.
How can you beat that?
So, being 25, 30 minutes away, he wanted that.
That's perfect.
How do you coach and father differently?
4:30 to 6:30, you're the coach.
Right.
And they have to understand that. And every once in a while, to send a message to the group about them understanding it, I'd have to throw Bobby out of practice. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty regular. Yeah, pretty regular. When he was a junior,
Would he just goof off and
or
that
no,
was
or he was, or
testing
we
you?
just weren't doing it. No. No one's. I've never been tested in 40 years. No one tests me. I just
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm like the Terminator. No one tests me.
So as a dad, though, I mean, there are times when you can't be terminating.
So what he would
children.
go change. One of the assistant coaches would drive him home. So there was really no heavy lifting. And we would get home and I'd say, you can't be doing this because I'm trying to get 2 or 3 of these other guys working harder and they're not working hard enough. And I have to make you as an example. By the time he was a senior, I would figure out when he was getting a little run down because we had a really unbelievable team. His senior year, we had 3 NBA first-round picks.
That's
in
unreal.
the starting lineup.
Amazing stats. And of course, we can't let you go without asking you this question about coaching in general right now. The Mike Rice situation at Rutgers. What's your opinion on that? Are they too sensitive? Is he a guy who just absolutely had to go because of that tape, or is coaching going in a direction where it's a little too sensitive in your mind?
Well, I think when you get to the point where the things you saw on the video occur, you really have to evaluate what you're doing.
Can't argue with a lot of that stuff.
It's just, and he's a friend. Mike's a good friend of mine.
Right.
And I have 2 of the the two starting guards this year were kids from St. Anthony's, Miles Mack and Eli
Right,
Carter.
that's right, yeah.
And to go to practice, I never saw it, but then to see it on film, throwing the balls, pushing the kids,
Physical
the
stuff.
language that was used.
Yeah.
You know, if I have a bad practice, I said, I throw the kid out, and then the practice picks up right away, because once the kid goes out, boy, everybody else tightens up fast.
Yeah, well, you would think that would happen.
And
would
you
hope
don't,
that would
and you
happen.
don't become negative, and you don't do or say anything that you're gonna, you know, you're not gonna be able to. I wouldn't be able to put my head on the pillow at night if it became that kind of thing. You're stupid. You're this. That. There's no place for that.
Has a kid ever tried your patience though to the point where you're like, yo, you had to like
They do it. They do
leave
it
the
most-
leave the gym?
I have adolescent males most days. There's someone every day who can't remember the plays we put in, who forgets his shorts. You know, countless things going on.
Stupid stuff
They're,
like that.
they're high school knuckleheads.
Yeah, right.